So today I thought we would look at how different artists, illustrators handle folds in clothing. And let's start with James Montgomery Flagg, one of the great illustrators of American illustration. And the cover of this book is the Uncle Sam, I Want You recruiting poster for World War I. James Montgomery Flagg was one of the great pen and ink artists of the 20th century. So let's take a look at some of his drawings. Let's find a good page of some, well, look at some paintings too. This is a Navy recruiting poster. And look at how he does the folds here in the sleeves. Show the tension. Notice there's kind of a highlight on the knee and then a shadow for folds away from the knee. Same here. Every place where there's some tension, that's where you get a fold. So this is Army infantry recruiting. And look at how the folds are handled here, just on a relaxed figure. Some interesting folds are happening right there in the uniform. There's another one for the Marine Corps. All kinds of posters he did for the war effort, get people to sign up. This one, the most famous one, is based on the British poster, which I don't know the artist's name, but it was a painting of General Kitchener pointing to the camera saying, "Britons, your country needs you." And James Montgomery Flagg changed that to Uncle Sam, pointing to the camera saying, "I want you for the U.S. Army." So here's a good one. All kinds of folds happening here. What we as a cartoonist do is we simplify that down to line art and make our drawings with just lines. Here we see the folds in the lady's sleeve here, and the folds around the guy's arms, around his pant legs. All this is just pen and ink. So you can learn a lot looking at old illustrators' work. A lot of good tips and tricks to be had. Here's some of his cartooning. All this line work is done instead of painting. So you can look him up online. Now let's look at some cartoonists. My favorite cartoonist, comic strip artist, Will Eisner. And he created the Spirit comic strip, which ran in newspapers as a comic book section back in the 40s. And let's look at how he handles the folds on clothing. And this period of his strip I thought was the best, the post-war years, because it was very cartoony and yet there was so much life in it. It was so different than any other comic. Notice here he's got just shadow on that side, but then there are folds coming out of it. The folds underneath here that show where his leg is, and that describes the muscle of the calf here. And just everywhere, so many interesting patterns of folds here. Even on this dummy here, there's interesting folds on the arm, sleeve, coming down. So you can learn a lot looking at Will Eisner stuff about folds in clothing. This is issue 4, I had this. Yeah, some really interesting ones here, right where the arm bends and you see all the folds in the elbow area coming up to the shoulder. here with the arm coming down, he stretched so the fabric is stretched, and there's wrinkles in the fabric as it goes down. There's so much good stuff you can learn looking at old comic strips. So now this is one of the masters of comic strips, the adventure comic, Milton Caniff. And this comic strip he did and ran in the newspapers. And he did such great work. This is all brush, pen and ink. Hello, kitty. And look at the way he handles all these shadows. And the way he handles wrinkles in his clothing is different than Will Eisner's handling of it. But just look at how he describes the arm here. That light part means that there's solid arm here. The shadow part means there's a bit of space underneath. The same here. There's shadows here to describe that the light's coming down, and so we want to show that there's shading here. The edge of the arm is here, but shadows here, and then there's wrinkles coming out of the clothing there. So a lot can be learned looking at these old comics. Look at the shadows for the wrinkles here on the sleeve. There were three great comic strip artists back in the old days: Milton Caniff, Hal Foster, and Alex Raymond. And if you were to pick up any collections, or just look them up on the internet, of Prince Valiant, Flash Gordon, Terry and the Pirates, and Steve Canyon, you'll see these great comic strip masters at work. And last but not least, I had a comment about Steve Ditko. So this is a book all about Steve Ditko, one of the great artists at Marvel Comics that created Spider-Man. And the way he handled shadows and clothing. And look at the way that the shadows here are on the clothing there, which means there's light coming up and there's shade going there for each piece of cloth that's folded. But the way he would draw just regular people, not superheroes. And look at this. The way he handles the clothing, and it drapes on the figures so naturally. Another one, the scary guy with his cape. Come on, kitty. Come on, you have to keep moving. You can't just stop. Come on. Come on, move along. So this is a really great book of Steve Ditko artwork. Come on, I don't have anything. The way he handles this guy in a suit, and he's showing you all these folds and wrinkles in the suit. So well done. He was a master of just doing ordinary people. That's part of the reason why Stan Lee picked him to do Spider-Man, because Jack Kirby's version would have been this super heroic, godlike figure, but Stan Lee wanted something that looked a bit more ordinary person. So Spider-Man was just an ordinary teenager. Look at the way the folds describe the draping of the cloth coming down. The wrinkles in the knee, right underneath the knee, showing you there's a knee there, but there's shadow here, and there's slight wrinkles here. So look up Steve Ditko, and you'll learn a lot about how to draw just regular people in clothing, and the way he puts the clothing on the person. You'll also learn a lot about light and shade and composition. He was one of the great artists. And this book is a really great testament to his artwork. So in the meantime, keep drawing, and we will see you next time.